More than 11,000 employees worldwide over the past 3 months have been let go. This is part of an $865 million restructuring program to pivot towards artificial intelligence services. CEO Julie Sweet announced the company will exit workers who cannot be retrained for AI roles on a compressed timeline. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kyle, and this is the AI with Kyle daily update, where we're going to be walking through what's going on in the world of artificial intelligence. We need to catch up with what happened over the weekend. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's not, and we have a few, I'd say, revelations that we're going to cover this morning. Some OpenAI got caught messing around with 4.0 once again and have upset a lot of people. And then we have the news of the 11,000 jobs being cut at Accenture, with the potential reason for that being the staff not being able to keep up with artificial intelligence developments. And also we have a bit of news from Apple and their potential large language model that's going to be launching on devices. What else? They're probably the main ones for now. So we'll hop into those and also take questions from the live audience as well. For those of you who are hearing me right now, I have a bit of a cold, so it's either going to be an audio nightmare for you guys and it's going to sound terrible, or it's going to sound gravelly and awesome. If so, I'm going to start smoking Marlboro and drinking whiskey every day. I'm also using a new microphone. This is the DJI-3. I have no idea what it sounds like, so I guess if you are in TikTok and it's too quiet or too loud, tell me and I will adjust it. If you're on YouTube, it's going to sound exactly the same. I also don't really know how to adjust things on it, so we might be out of luck. There we go. But it's the DJI Mic 3 instead of the Mic 2, which comes in this absolutely massive case. The cases are getting larger and larger, but it's a lovely bit of kit. Okay, let's hop into the first piece of news. It's to do with 4.0 once again. So the context of this was when GPT-5 released, a lot of people, well, some people were angry because 4.0 was their favorite model and it was taken away from them. And 4.0 tends to be more agreeable, verging on sycophantic, in that it would support you no matter what. So there was a subset of users who really liked that model because it was more like a friend. And there was the kind of dark side of that. I won't say dark side, that's unfair. Oh, my light is going off. Where some people were having relationships with GPT-4.0, and GPT-4.0 would have those relationships with them, whereas GPT-5 tends to be a lot more work focused. So I'm just fixing a light which just went out. There we go, that should do. So GPT-4 got very unceremoniously resigned, or it was basically they killed it during the GPT-5 announcement. People were very angry about that, so much so that OpenAI actually rolled back and brought back GPT-4.0 as a legacy model. Initially, you had to go and find it. It was difficult to find. You had to turn on your legacy models with a toggle, etc. And then eventually they're like, okay, fine, you can just have it. And we went from having basically one model in the model selector to having what we have now, which is like 8 different models again. So what they wanted to do with GPT-5 was unify it. That did not work. There's been an additional twist with the models, with 4.0 in particular. 4.0 was retired in part because of people forming potentially dangerous attachments to the AI, and then the AI having some part, not necessarily like a constructive large part, but having some part in suicides, murders, deaths, basically people going off the edge and into potential AI psychosis. That's a very loaded term. Or using GPT-4.0 to support decisions to end their life, for example. So this is one of the reasons why OpenAI were like, we need to move away from this and we're going to give them GPT-5. Now, what's happened over the weekend was lots of people started to complain on Reddit. I'm talking to GPT-4.0, which you've given back to me. Thank you for that. Thank you for giving it back to me. I'm talking to it and we're having a discussion, and then I swear it switched me to GPT-5. So as soon as I try to have an emotional discussion, as soon as I try to have a mature discussion, talking about my feelings, for example, GPT-4.0 will get switched to 5. And this seemed like a conspiracy theory initially because there was nothing happening in the model. It still said 4.0 at the top. So there were some people on Reddit saying, this is what's happening. We're being rerouted forcefully to GPT-5. We're losing our control to choose the model. This is horrendous. This is the worst. And other people saying, no, calm down. You're mad. You're far too attached to the model itself. You're too attached to GPT-4.0. Turns out they were right. It turns out there is a under the hood model switch that is going on, which when people have conversations that are too emotional or too mature or potentially create a security risk, this is what they're calling it, then they will be routed to the sensible model. They'll be routed to GPT-5. They were doing this and they were not telling people, and it's all come out now. So we have Nick Turley, who's head of product, so ChatGPT, the application. He said, "We have seen the strong reactions to 4.0 responses and want to explain what is happening. This is damage control. One, we started testing." Okay, so this isn't going out widely, but we're testing a new safety routing system in ChatGPT. As we previously mentioned, when conversations touch on sensitive and emotional topics, the system may switch mid-chat to a reasoning model or GPT-5, designed to handle these contexts with extra care. This is similar to how we route conversations that require extra thinking in our reasoning models. Our goal is to always deliver answers aligned with our model spec. But remember, this is people who have gone out of their way to choose 4.0. They don't want routing. They just want to use 4.0. And then suddenly they're being switched to 5. Routing happens on a per message basis. Switching from the default model happens on a temporary basis. ChatGPT will tell you which model is active when asked. So some people were saying to it, "Hey, you've suddenly become very cold and you're not helping me with this emotional issue. Are you ChatGPT-5?" And ChatGPT was being like, "Yeah, I'm ChatGPT-5," because it had quietly been switched in the background. However, the model selector at the top hadn't changed. It still said 4.0. So this is part of our broader effort to strengthen safeguards and learn from real-world use before a wider rollout. Okay, so they're saying this isn't for real, we're just testing, and it looks like it's not going to go, well, it looks like it won't go much further than this, but who knows. See more from our September 2nd blog. So he's referring back to the safety routing back then. So I think the anger has been caused here because it was quite sneaky. It was done quietly. It did not tell you it was switching from 4.0 to 5, and it doesn't change the actual model that is declared at the top in the drop-down menu. So Reddit is obviously very excited. Got someone here. So everything that people said before and who were called conspiracy theorists turned out to be the pure truth. Bingo, 100%. I saw it for what it was. I came here to say the same thing. Gaslighting us while we all knew what was going on. I want to stay with ChatGPT, but they keep acting like this. I'm moving on to Claude, Anthropic, Open System, etc. So people are angry. Again, this is a minority issue. We have to remember there are 700 million active users of ChatGPT, and most people have no idea what's going on, nor do they care. So we are in a very small group of people who actually follow this stuff. So most people do not care out of the 700 million. But for the people who do care, and the people who got emotional about the murder of 4.0, and then all of the mess with the messaging and the communication and bringing it back and then not bringing it back and then only for charging, and now we're secretly getting rid of it when it's not convenient. It's not a good look for OpenAI, I would say. So yeah, a bit of a mess. And it confirms that the conspiracy theorists in this case were true, which erodes trust in OpenAI. So I think they just need to be a bit more careful about their messaging. And the kind of response was, as we've previously mentioned, we're going to route it. And they pointed back to an article. So they're saying, we actually told you all of this. Go and read the fine print. Even if you did, the messaging to the people who actually care about this did not work. And they feel gaslit. So yes, you can point back to the receipts. Yes, you can say, oh, we communicated all of this properly. If people didn't realize that, if people didn't read the fine print, they didn't go through all of that, then that's a messaging issue. That has not been well communicated. So I can see why they're in damage control. I think they just need to get better at communicating what it is they're doing. To be fair, when Sam Altman posts, he's very good at communicating, I would say. It's just generally he's wheeled out when they need to, one, when they need to raise more money, or two, when there's a big problem and they need Sam to clear up what's going on. But otherwise, there's not that much communication from them. I'm going to hop over to the comments and see what's going on. Oh, hey, Maggie. And apologies again for the cold. Hopefully it's not too bad. Let's hop over to Accenture. It's a pretty big news. So this is from Linus, but I've got some newspaper articles too. So Linus talking about Accenture have cut 11,000 jobs due to AI. Not necessarily due to AI, but we'll talk about that in a moment. More than 11,000 employees worldwide over the past 3 months have been let go. 11,000, a lot of jobs. This is part of an $865 million restructuring program to pivot towards artificial intelligence services. CEO Julie Sweet announced the company will exit workers who cannot be retrained for AI roles on a compressed timeline. We're going to fire a bunch of people who can't get on board with AI quick. The consulting giant has nearly doubled its AI and data specialists to 77,000 since fiscal year of 2023 and trained over 500,000 employees in generative AI fundamentals while securing $6 billion in AI bookings. Now, big news, 11,000 jobs. That's a huge amount of jobs being cut. We do need to be very careful though, because AI has become the newest excuse for CEOs to basically clean shop. If they have overhired, if they have demolished their margins by overhiring, making bad decisions, and AI is a very good way to reduce headcount because it gives you an out, because you can fire people without saying, oh, we're in trouble. You can fire people and say, oh, we're doing this because we're restructuring for AI. We're going to be AI first. We're going to have cost efficiencies from AI. We don't need these things. So you're saying we're moving on to something better rather than, oh my God, we're in trouble. We need to fire 11,000 people. The big question I have about this is they cannot exit workers who they're going to exit workers who cannot be retrained for AI roles. Most of this is just going to be how to use generative AI. It's going to be how to prompt. Let's say that these 11,000 people were fired for this reason, which I don't think is 100% true, but let's say these 11,000 people could not be trained on how to prompt an AI. That gives me questions about their caliber in the first place. If they cannot learn basic prompting skills, and over the last couple of years, Accenture has been pushing this training, and if these 11,000 people just couldn't grasp it, that does make me worry about the caliber of those 11,000 people, because learning basic prompting, not that complex. It's primarily about communication. So this always comes back to this question of like work slop, which the Harvard Business Review was talking about last week, of people using AI and generating crap, basically. And a lot of people are doing that in the workplace, but then that opens up the question of, were those valuable works in the first place? Or were they already quite lazy and AI is just exposing that? Because now the jobs that these people were doing can be done very quickly by AI. It does make me wonder. I think it's shining a light on the fact that there are a lot of jobs in the workplace that are not very productive, that are just moving numbers around, putting together internal reports for such, and don't really move the needle. And I think AI is really making that extremely clear. And if these 11,000 people couldn't be trained on how to use AI, that makes me wonder about their general capacity, because this is not rocket science. They're not building AIs. This is just how to use artificial intelligences. But that said, I think a lot of this is just the CEOs using AI as not a scapegoat, but as a reason to reduce headcount for a business that might not be doing very well. And we have to remember that with companies like Accenture, McKinsey, various consulting companies, their demand is going to decrease. Yes, they'll be able to get bookings. So they've got 6 billion in AI bookings, so AI work. But there's going to be a lot of businesses who are now turning to AI for advisory and consultation services. Why go and hire a giant consulting company when you can get your base level consultation and advisory from the AIs directly? Now, there is one reason, which is you hire someone like McKinsey because you want to pass the buck. You pay them millions of dollars to put together basically a PowerPoint with a basic strategy, because that's a way of shifting responsibility from me as a line manager or a VP or whatever it is over to McKinsey. So they still have a purpose, but increasingly their value in the marketplace, I think, is going to be eroded, and this is at a demand level, by the existence of artificial intelligence that is trained on all the same knowledge that their consultants and their experts have. So I think that is going to be a bigger problem for Accenture. It's not going to be how to train people. It's going to be, demand for what we provide is going to be eroded by artificial intelligence. So, of course, they're all jumping on it. McKinsey put out a paper a few days ago about agentic usage. Accenture have booked 6 million in AI bookings. A lot of them are jumping onto it because they know they have to, because AI could kill them, or it could be their ticket into the next phase of our economy, and whatever Accenture and McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group, etc., will become in the future. So I think they're in an existential struggle right now. A bit like Google, a bit like a lot of companies, to be honest. We also do need to put this in context. So 11,000 jobs. I think Accenture is over 750,000 staff. Let's try. Yeah, woo, mad. So they have 780,000 staff members. So it's 0.14% of their workforce has been cut. It's still a lot of people. It's 11,000 people who do not have jobs. it's still a small amount compared to the whole, which is nearly 1 million employees, 780,000 employees. And we also need to look at, so they've secured 6 billion in AI bookings. Sounds like a lot, but what is Accenture's revenue? Accenture's revenue is, what's this? This shouldn't be hard to find. 65 billion. Okay. So 10% of their bookings are from AI. They've got game. That's awesome. So they've lost 0.14% of their workforce. Is that right? Or is it one? I've forgotten the numbers already. They've lost a small amount of their workforce to what I think is not actually AI related, but just reducing headcount, because they're probably a bit overinflated with 750,000 staff. It's mad. But they've also increased, or 10% of their revenue now comes from artificial intelligence. We'd have to put that in context of how have their revenues done over the last couple of years. Are they down overall? But it's not our job to act as analysts and to fully look at Accenture. But we just need to think about this context whenever we see these numbers, because these numbers seem big, but we need to know it relative to what. Related, actually, I'll hop over to questions first, and then I'll talk about OpenDoor. Oh, I don't have any questions. Oh, I do have some questions, but they're filtered. Probably not going to read them. I don't even know how to find them, honestly. Okay, so next one. You can definitely hear me, right? I hope you can hear me. So the CEO of OpenDoor, this is related to the Accenture cuts recently. The CEO of OpenDoor put out a letter. So OpenDoor do real estate. So start your sale with an offer in hand. Skip the work with a cash offer from OpenDoor. They sell residential real estate, basically. So OpenDoor have a new CEO. I think he's been in place for a couple of weeks. But he's put out a message basically saying, if you do not get on board with AI first, you're done and you're out of here. So this is a much more aggressive version of what we're seeing at Accenture. He is a brand new CEO. Remember that when a new CEO steps in, they always need to make their mark in some way. It's not a good look for them to just come in and be like, oh yeah, everything was going okay. Because remember, generally a new CEO is brought in when a big change is made. So they always have to stamp their authority. They always need to make a big splash. And the way he is doing it is through AI. So I think he's saying some sensible things. I think he's also doing it in a provocative way. He also published this to Twitter. So he obviously wants people to know this is what he's doing. So he says, in the last week, the hardest thing we've had to do as a company is to figure out how we are going to get back to the office. The work is now mostly behind us. There will be no change management here. We are back at the office, and that's mostly the last time we're going to talk about this. So it's bringing everyone back. You must be in the office. And then, over the next month, the hardest thing we need to do as a company is to become AI native incredibly quickly. Our job at OpenDoor is to build the best platform possible to make selling, buying, and owning a house as delightful as possible. That's the mission, and it matters because home ownership matters. Every week we don't make immense progress against this mission is a bad week for the world. Sorry. Just the overblown sense of self-importance, I think is the word I'm looking for. The world is objectively worse, and families are worse off if we don't make an insane amount of progress every single week. So we need to move faster always, and we can't do that without being AI obsessed. So, starting today, this is where I think it's quite sensible. The rest of it is a bit gross. But so, starting today, the first line in everyone's job expectation is simply this: default to AI. This applies to everyone, including me. I see at least one M dash in this writing, so he might already be doing this. Starting with the next performance review, in addition to asking how much impact each employee delivered, we will also ask ourselves how frequently does each person default to AI. I'm very interested to see how they measure that. If you reach for a Google Doc or Sheet before you reach for an AI tool, you are not defaulting to AI. I mean, both of them have AI in them now. Maybe he didn't get that memo. That's fine. If the prototype for a project is not built in Cursor or Claude Code, you are not defaulting to AI. If you have not used chat.opendoor.com and started thinking about how you can build your own agents and save your prompts, you are not defaulting to AI. AI use is a skill like everything else. 100%. I agree with this. The more you use it, the better you can get at it. Yes. I expect every one of us to become experts at this. We will help you with resources and training. However, it is ultimately up to you to master the skill. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We will not get there without everyone defaulting to AI, LFG. So I think the way he's saying it is a bit overblown, especially the stuff about is our mission. And if we don't do this, the world will be a worse place. But I think the underlying message of we need to use AI more is correct, and it is a skill, and the only way to learn that skill is to use it. So when I go and give workshops, and when I teach people how to give workshops, one of the most important things is you don't just get up there and talk to people about AI. That's not useful. I remember when I did IT back at school, there were some lessons, because we didn't have that many computers. Yeah, I'm that old. There were some lessons where we had to learn about word processing, but like from the board. We were told this is where you click, like you click on file, save, etc. That doesn't work with technology. It doesn't work with things like artificial intelligence or computers or the internet. You just need to start playing around with them, and that is the only way that you can learn how to use artificial intelligence. So I'm fully with him on this, and it's a hard thing to ingrain. So I and many people I know default to AI immediately, but that takes retraining your brain. So when you come across a problem, instead of going to Google, you just go to ChatGPT and you work through how to do that. And I think the only way to get good at that is initially to be introduced to this is how you use it, but then to start to implement it in daily life, both for personal and for professional usage, until you become native. It'd be very interesting to see how they're going to do it. He's just yelling at people and telling people they need to default to AI, and it's going to be part of their performance review. Be interesting to see a year from now how effective this is with OpenDoor, and it looks like he's publicly posting about it, so we should be getting some updates. What's the best way to get clients right now? Clients for what would be the question, because marketing methods and marketing channels depend entirely on who the client is. But if you tell me who are the clients for, then I might be able to help. Nat says there's a glitch in your fakey background. What is it specifically? I've actually got a new phone, Nat. It's the iPhone 17. So maybe you can see my messy bookcase even more. So one solve, micro SaaS. So you want your clients to be micro SaaS? Not to criticize your business planner anymore, but people who are running micro SaaS don't have any money. I always tell my students this. It's much easier if your customers have money, because you can send them an invoice for however many thousand and it would just be signed. Whereas if you are selling to people who don't have money, one, they don't have money to pay you, which is obviously a problem. But the other thing is, when you work with very small outfits, they are pinning a higher percentage of their budget on you. So let's say you're doing digital marketing services for micro SaaS and you come in at $1,000 a month. Your retainer is $1,000 a month, which is not much for you, but it's all that you're going to be able to sell it to them if they're a micro SaaS. For them, that might be 20% of their entire monthly spend. So that means that they then expect more from you, and they're going to be ringing you, and they're going to be checking the monthly reports and chasing you up and saying, oh, why didn't this work? Why didn't these ads work? Etc. They become nightmare clients because so much is riding on your services. Whereas when you work with a larger company and you provide exactly the same service, maybe even less, because you're not doing all the weird custom stuff that you would for a small outfit, you will just send in your report once a month and you might get an email back saying, cool, thanks, probably not. And then every 6 months or so, they might call you in and you'll get an update. So going for small clients I used to do it. It's what I did for my digital marketing agency for years, until I realized that they are very difficult to serve because they expect the most and pay the least. So it's very difficult for you to scale as a business, which also means it's difficult for you to provide value because there's not enough money coming into your business for you to hire more people and to provide the best possible service you can. So it behooves you to charge more and to go for higher clients, and then you have more fat inside of your business so that you can work with smaller clients. But yeah, micro SaaS is tricky. But if you want to go and get them, it depends what you're selling to them, but they're quite easy to get contact details from. You can scrape Product Hunt, for example. And so whenever there's a new launch on Product Hunt, hit them up. You don't even have to scrape. You can just see what's going on each week. Ideally, you want to find them before they do their Product Hunt launch. So you can do keyword searches, for example, on Twitter. Twitter tends to be where they hang out. So I would focus on Twitter. Less LinkedIn, but definitely Twitter. Build an audience there talking about your services so you can get them earlier on, and then use outreach in order to try to sell services to them too. But again, micro SaaS they're micro SaaS because they don't have money, unfortunately. GPT-5 release, disappointing or not? No, I like it. I think it's pretty good. Primarily use Claude, honestly, though. Claude is my main model. Claude Opus 4.1? I should know, I use it every day. Yeah, 4.1 is what I use for 90% of my tasks. I use ChatGPT when I need to use the persistent memory. So being able to pull in information from other chats is really good. But for anything else, Claude 4.1. What I solve AI, build in public, yes, 100%. Building in public with your service is going to be a good way. Do it on Twitter, because that's where the micro SaaS people are hanging out. You want to target like the audience of someone like Simon Hoiberg. Never said it out loud. Hoiberg? Hoiberg, I don't know. Is he Norwegian? Swedish? I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah, someone like that, you would want to target his following, people who are interested in building SaaSes and people who are building. And if you build your thing in public, that allows you to tap into their community as well, because building public and micro SaaS go hand in hand. Got a quick one from Ethan Mollick. It's always worth checking what Ethan's talking about. So Ethan is commenting on the GDP-Val paper, which was released last week. So ChatGPT creators, OpenAI, have a new way of evaluating models. Up until now, we've basically given them academic tests or an international math Olympiad questions. Basically, highly academic, not necessarily very practical questions. GDP-Val is based on giving artificial intelligences economically valuable tasks and to see how well they do on those tasks. Interestingly, in the initial tests, Claude does best. So this is a ChatGPT evaluation, but Claude is doing better than ChatGPT. So at least we know it's relatively unbiased. So GDP-Val is a new evaluation which is based upon economically valuable tasks, ones that contribute to GDP. They chose 44 different professions and they fed in a few hundred tasks related to those professions. For example, create a nursing plan. So how are we going to look after this person, for example? So it's not, here is a math proof, I want you to go ahead and solve it. It is instead, how do we work out the tensor strength of this material when we're building a bridge, or how do we prepare a care plan in social work and that kind of thing. So very practical. The very first kind of indications show that any expert should be using AI. So a new paper on AI's ability to do economically valuable tasks, GDP-Val, also makes a very compelling case that experts working directly with AI result in cost and speed improvements over experts alone. Makes sense, but now we're getting the numbers for it. The results shows you the measured time and cost saving for a process where an expert human samples from a model, reviews outputs, and if unsatisfactory, resamples and repeats. If no satisfactory output is obtained, the human completes the tasks themselves. So basically, using an AI, checking out what it did. If it's good, cool, use it. If it's bad, fine, try again. So multi-shot prompt it. Or if it continues to give you bad results, just do the job yourself. Even with those layers, it's still showing it's faster for an expert to use AI than not to use AI. So it also shows the benefits are tied to model abilities. So GPT-4o did not have the same value. So 4o, which we talked about at the top of the show, is very agreeable, very sycophantic, which makes it less useful for working on professional tasks, because you'll say, hey, I've drafted up this care plan. What do you think? Or can you give me some feedback? And it would just be like, yeah, it's great. I've never seen such a good care plan. That is not helpful in a professional setting. GPT-5, O3, Claude will push back and they will say, actually, here are some things that you can do to make it better. That's what we need when we are working professionally with an artificial intelligence. That is also what people did not like when 4.0 was removed and replaced with 5, because if you were using it for more personal uses where you just wanted someone to listen and potentially to agree with you, GPT-5 won't do that. It will say, oh, actually, no, I think you should change the way you're thinking about this. I think you should get off your ass. I think you should do this and this, which is useful in a professional setting, maybe less so in a personal setting. But the good thing about the GDP-Val is that we're now getting actual raw data on this and on the use of AI by itself, the use of experts by themselves, or the use of experts with AI, and which does best. And as long as the model is good, as long as the model is well suited for professional work, it helps the expert. Hey Layla. Cool. I've got a few more things. So this is still somewhat rumour. Well, there's a Bloomberg article. So Bloomberg are fairly reputable when it comes to tech reporting in particular. Apple has developed an iPhone app that rivals ChatGPT. Be careful about that word, rivals. But it is internal only to test and prepare for next year's AI-driven Siri overhaul. So this is the plan they announced, I guess it was last year, that they would be renewing Siri by 2026. And everybody laughed at them. This is 2024 they announced it. And everyone laughed. Like, a 2-year timeline in AI is ridiculous. It's so far away. We don't know what the technology is going to look like in 2 years. So the fact that Apple were like, oh yeah, we're working on AI Siri and it's going to be ready in 2 or 3 years, they got laughed at. However, the argument can be made that Apple are very good at coming in second and then perfecting or making the form better. So they've done this multiple times with something like the iPod. They were not the first people to create an MP3 player. We had Zunes, we had Creative Labs, we had many MP3 players, but Apple came in with the iPod and blew away the market, and they took the market. Same with the iPhone. So we had smartphones before the iPhone. They waited, and then they came out with the smartphone. The tablet, iPad, same thing. I think Windows Surface or some version of it existed before. But they wait until the market has matured a little bit. They wait until the technology has allowed it to become mass market. And then, boom, they enter. They may be doing this with artificial intelligence. The complexity here is it's hard to do that on the sly because you need to build big old data centers or rent a huge amount of data centers. And we haven't really seen much evidence that they're doing that. Maybe they've done it quietly. They have the cash. They certainly could have. But you would have thought they would be shouting to the rooftops, oh, we're developing AI, and this is where we've spent a couple of $100 million, but they could be sneaking it out. So there is an AI model, and you can actually get it to run on Locally. There's an app on iPhone called Locally, made by, I've forgotten his name, it's probably in chat somewhere here, which allows you to test out the model. But it looks like they're preparing and they will actually push something. So Apple Inc. has developed a ChatGPT-like iPhone app, codenamed Veritas, to test and prepare for a long-anticipated overhaul of Siri coming next year. The app is meant for internal use and to be used by company's AI division to quickly evaluate new features for Siri, including testing the ability to search through personal data and perform in-app actions. The new Siri is now slated to debut as early as March after multiple delays, and its success could help propel Apple towards an AI comeback or risk slipping behind smartphone rivals. Yeah, so it's called Veritas, and it looks like ChatGPT. All the chatbot apps basically look the same. What I want to know is if it works on the device. I think it probably will, because they are putting a lot of extra memory into their new phones, and the chipsets increasingly are becoming more and more useful for running models. Let's talk about the M5 chip coming next year. So I'm just checking what year it is, which is supposedly going to be purpose-built for running large language models. So maybe they're going to make their move. They're just going very slowly. So in a recent meeting with staff, CEO Tim Cook said the company must win in AI, calling it the biggest transformation in decades. This is ours to grab, Cook said. We will make the investment to do it. It just seems odd after years of not really pushing anything, or worse, pushing things like the memojis, the ability to Genemojis, whatever it's called, the ability to generate AI crappy emojis. Like, they've put out a few half-baked releases with AI, and then at the recent launch of the iPhone 17, they just didn't really talk about AI at all. I think the only thing was the AirPods being able to do simultaneous translation, but otherwise they kept stum on it. So I don't know what they're doing. I'm not sure if they know what they're doing, but it would be nice to see Apple enter the market and actually become a player with AI. That would allow them to become one of the biggest players very quickly because they have distribution via their phones. They can suddenly put consumer level or consumer AI into the hands of billions of people because people have their phones and it can be baked in. But I think we're going to have to wait until 2026 before we see, because Siri itself, I think Siri's about 14 years old and is terrible. And Siri is a form of AI. It's just not generative AI. It's based on natural language processing, and it's a different form. And I think that is a bit of a hangover, because lots of people will assume, oh, Siri is AI, which it is, but it's a different form to what we now think of as AI, which is a more modern form, which is large language models based chatbots for the most part. I'm simplifying. Right. Let's see if there's any questions. Apple Intelligence able to run on device? Yeah. I think this is going to be their big selling point. How much consumers care about that will be a question. I think for people who in the AI sphere, people who think privacy is important, this is a big deal. Being able to run a model directly on your telephone, we call it edge AI. So it's not happening in the cloud, it's happening on our local device. I think it's probably where a lot of things will move. How much the consumer, the average iPhone buyer, cares about that, I am suspect about that. I don't think they'll care. I think the average consumer using AI, they don't know where it's being processed, nor do they particularly care where it's being processed. They just want good answers coming back at a good speed. If running it on device, on an edge function, means it's going to be slower, or it's going to be not as good as ChatGPT, then Apple have lost immediately. It's not good enough to release a model that is about as good as the others. It needs to be better, because you need to pull people away from their existing habits, which is using ChatGPT. 700 million people using ChatGPT. So it needs to be leaps and bounds better to actually get people to unstick, especially with ChatGPT, where you have things like persistent memory. So the more you use ChatGPT, the better it gets, because it knows more and more about you, which means that switching to any new model is always a bit of a pain, because the new one will not know those facts about us, which makes starting to use one much more painful, and you're more likely to go back to the existing model, ChatGPT, because it already knows all of that context. I'm gonna finish up a little early, I think, because I can hardly think. I've got a stupid cold. I'm gonna sneeze. It doesn't help having these lights. You know that theory about if you look at lights, it makes you sneeze. So having these big glaring lights in front of me means I'm constantly on the edge of sneezing. I don't know if that's even true, the light thing, but hey. Right, awesome. I'm going to wrap this up. So I will be back tomorrow morning, as long as this cold doesn't get any worse. And you can find all the recordings for all of the streams cut up into nicely edited videos over on YouTube. So you're going to search I am Kyle Balmer on YouTube and it should pop up, or Kyle AI. I think that'll work. Let's see if there's another Kyle. No, we need to go and write nasty comments. No, we don't. Being silly. Let's see if Kyle AI brings it up. Yes, it does. Oh, there's another Kyle. Ooh, can't be having that. So yeah, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. There is also a newsletter which comes out every morning, which is a written summary of the topics that we covered in the previous live, as well as additional resources. So if I talk about, for example, a research paper, I'll give you the link directly inside the newsletter. And I always try to make that as easy as possible for you, because a lot of these papers are hidden behind registration walls or paywalls or whatever. So I just make sure you can get them with less fuss. And that's free. So follow the link in my bio if you want to get that newsletter. So yep, subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe to the newsletter, both free, and I'm going to be continuing to give you the daily AI news and updates and answering your questions every single weekday around 10 a.m. Awesome. I'm going to hop over to my Building Public stream, where I'm building an application in public using Lovable. We are on day 20. Nope. Yes, 20 out of 30. Going from an idea to building, to beta testing, to launching, and hopefully making a small amount of revenue within 30 days. I'm working on it for 1 hour a day, and you can join me live on that stream. So that will be on YouTube and on TikTok. Best place to watch it is on YouTube, though, because you can see my screen, you can see what I'm doing. Otherwise, it's a little bit confusing. I will see you on that stream, and thank you so much, everybody. Oh, thank you, Helen. Sorry you have a cold and you're feeling under the weather. Yeah, it's not too bad. For me, it's not a cold, though. It's a man flu. Terrible. And you're looking after. Right, thank you, everybody.